The rain fell hard on Ashadara Prime that evening. Water pooled in the cracks of the central square, turning the ground into a mirror that reflected the dim lights above. Minji pulled her jacket tighter as she walked home from her shift at the maintenance bay. Her boots splashed through puddles, and her breath made small clouds in the cold air. She had worked 12 hours fixing broken equipment in the lower districts. Her hands still smelled like machine oil, and her shoulders ached. All she wanted was to reach her small room, eat something warm, and sleep. But as she crossed the square, she stopped. In the center of the plaza, chained to a massive metal post, was the dragon. Everyone called him the dragon, though his species had a proper name, Dravik. He was the last one most people had ever seen. The Galactic Coalition had destroyed his kind decades ago, back when Minji was not even born. This one had been kept alive as a trophy, a reminder of what happened to those who challenged the Coalition's power. Minji had passed this square hundreds of times. She had seen the creature before, always chained, always silent. The other workers never looked at him for long. The alien guards who watched over the colony would laugh and throw things at him sometimes. The Velcrin administrators ignored him completely. To them, he was just a thing, a defeated enemy turned into decoration. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was how tired Minji felt. Maybe it was the way the creature sat with his massive head lowered, water streaming off his scales. But for the first time, Minji really looked at him. He was huge. Even sitting, even chained, he was bigger than the cargo haulers at the spaceport. His scales were a dull blue-gray color, covered in scars and scratches. His wings were folded tight against his body, bound with glowing chains that hummed with energy. Those chains wrapped around his legs, his neck, his tail. They kept him from moving more than a few feet in any direction. His eyes were closed against the rain. He looked tired. Not dangerous. Not like a monster. Just tired. Minji stood there for a long moment, rain soaking through her jacket. Around her, other colonists hurried past without stopping. A group of Hross guards stood under an awning nearby, playing some kind of game on their datapads. They did not care about the dragon. Why would they? He had been there for 70 years. He was part of the scenery now. But Minji kept staring. She thought about how cold the rain was. She thought about how hungry she had been during her shift, counting the hours until she could eat. She thought about what it must be like to sit here, every day, every night, in the rain and the heat and the cold, with nothing. No shelter, no kindness. Nothing but chains and silence. It was wrong. The thought came quietly, but it would not leave her mind. It was wrong. Minji took a breath and kept walking. She went to her room in the housing complex, a tiny space with a bed, a food processor, and a small storage unit. She pulled off her wet jacket and stood in the middle of the room, thinking. She could hear her supervisor's voice in her head. "Don't make trouble, Minji. Humans are barely tolerated here. Keep your head down. Do your work. Don't draw attention." That was the rule. Humans were the weakest species in the Coalition. No claws, no armor, no psychic powers, no natural weapons, just soft skin and fragile bones. In a galaxy full of stronger, smarter, more powerful beings, humans survived by being useful and invisible. Getting involved with a war trophy would be stupid, dangerous. It could get her arrested, or worse, it could bring trouble to the other humans in the colony. Minji looked at her food processor. She had enough ration credits for the week. She could make herself dinner. She could forget about the dragon in the rain and go to sleep. But she did not. Instead, she programmed the food processor for 2 portions. She made a simple stew with protein paste, synth vegetables, and the spice packets she had been saving. It was not fancy food, but it was hot and filling. She poured it into a thermal container that would keep it warm. Then she put her jacket back on and walked back out into the rain. The square was nearly empty now. The Hross guards were still under their awning, focused on their game. Minji walked slowly across the plaza, her heart beating fast. She felt very small. The dragon was so large, and she was just a human girl with a container of cheap stew. She stopped a few feet away from him. Up close, he was even bigger than she had thought. One of his claws was the size of her entire torso. His scales, even dulled and scarred, still caught the light in strange ways. She could feel heat coming from his body, like standing near a furnace. The dragon's eyes opened. They were orange, like fire behind glass. They looked at her without expression. Minji swallowed hard. "I brought you something," she said. Her voice sounded small in the empty square. The dragon did not move. He just watched her with those burning eyes. Minji set the thermal container on the ground and pushed it forward with her foot, sliding it close enough that he could reach it with his chained claws. Then she stepped back. For a long moment, nothing happened. The dragon stared at the container, then at her. Minji could hear the guards laughing at something on their data pads. She could hear the rain hitting the ground. Then the dragon spoke. His voice was deep, like rocks grinding together, like distant thunder. "Why?" It was one word, but it held so much. "Why would you do this? Why would you approach me? Why would you waste food on something like me?" Minji looked up at him, rain dripping from her hair. "Because you're hungry," she said, "and because it's wrong. What they do to you. It's wrong." The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at her for another long moment. Then slowly, he reached out with one massive claw. The chains rattled and sparked, fighting against his movement. He picked up the thermal container carefully, like he was afraid it might be Minji did not return the next night. She told herself it was too dangerous. She had done one kind thing, and that should be enough. Going back would be pushing her luck. The guards might notice. The administrators might ask questions. Other humans might get angry with her for causing trouble. But on the third night after the rain, she found herself walking across the square again with another container of food. This time, the dragon was watching her approach. His orange eyes tracked her movement from the moment she entered the plaza. Minji felt nervous under that gaze, but she did not stop. She walked up to him and set down the container just like before. "You came back," Taeyang said. His voice was still deep and rough, but there was something different in it now. Surprise, maybe. "I did," Minji said. She stepped back and sat down on a bench near the edge of his chains. It was a foolish thing to do, sitting so close to a creature that could kill her with one swipe of his claw. But somehow she was not afraid. Taeyang looked at the food, then at her. "Why?" he asked again. "Same reason as before," Minji said. "You're hungry, and nobody else seems to care." "They don't," Taeyang agreed. He opened the container and began to eat, more slowly this time, like he was savoring it. "They haven't cared for 70 years. Minji pulled her knees up to her chest. "How long have you been here?" 73 years, 4 months, 18 days, Taeyang said without hesitation. "I have counted every one." The number hit Minji like a physical weight. 73 years. She had been alive for 23. This creature had been chained here more than 3 times her entire life. "What was your crime?" she asked quietly. Taeyang's laugh was bitter like grinding metal. "I existed. My species existed. We were strong, so we were dangerous. The coalition decided that dangerous things should be eliminated." He paused, looking at the chains on his legs. "They killed most of us. The few survivors were scattered across the galaxy. I was kept as a reminder, a trophy. Proof that even the mighty Dravik could be broken." "I'm sorry," Minji said. She did not know what else to say. "Why?" Taeyang asked. "You didn't do this? Your species wasn't even part of the coalition when my world burned." "I know," Minji said. "But it's still wrong, and someone should say they're sorry." Taiyang stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned his attention back to the food. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the energy chains and the distant noise of the colony around them. "What is your name?" Taiyang asked finally. "Minji." "Minji," he repeated, testing the sound. "I am Taiyang, though I doubt anyone here remembers that. They just call me the dragon or the prisoner or the trophy." "Taiyang," Minji said. "That's a good name." "It means sun in one of your human languages," Taiyang said. "Old Korean, I think. I learned some of your languages while chained here. I had nothing else to do but listen and watch and learn." Minji felt a strange warmth in her chest. "It's a strong name." They talked for another 20 minutes before Minji left. She told him about her work in the maintenance bay, about the other humans in the colony, about how humanity had joined the coalition only 30 years ago. Taiyang listened, his orange eyes never leaving her face. Over the next few weeks, this became their routine. Every few nights, Minji would come with food. Sometimes she brought stew, sometimes she brought other things, protein bars or synth fruit or whatever she could spare from her rations, and they would talk. Taiyang told her about the Dravik civilization. He spoke of worlds where his people had built cities that floated on clouds of fire. He described music that was played with elemental forces, creating symphonies of flame and wind. He talked about the philosophy of his people, how they believed that true strength came from balancing power with wisdom. "We were not perfect," Taiyang admitted one night. "We were warriors, yes. We were proud. But we were also artists, poets, builders. The coalition only remembers us as monsters, but we were so much more than that." Minji listened, fascinated. She had never heard anyone speak of the Dravik this way. In all the official records, they were described as aggressive, dangerous, a threat to galactic peace. But listening to Taiyang, she heard about a rich culture that had been erased from history. In return, Minji told him about Earth. She had never been there herself. She was born on a colony ship, part of humanity's expansion into space. But she had seen videos and read books. She told him about oceans and forests, about cities that touched the clouds, about humanity's long history of struggle and survival. "Your species is considered weak," Taiyang observed one night. "We are weak," Minji said with a small smile. "Compared to most species in the galaxy, anyway. We don't have scales or claws. We can't breathe fire or move things with our minds. We're just people. Soft, fragile people." "Then how do you survive?" Taiyang asked. Minji thought about it. "We refuse to give up," she said finally. "Humans have almost gone extinct more times than I can count. Ice ages, wars, diseases, disasters. But we keep going. We adapt. We help each other. We're stubborn." Taiyang made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Stubborn? Yes, I can see that. You keep coming here, even though it's dangerous for you." "It's not that dangerous," Minji said. But she was wrong. On her 8th visit, as she was talking with Taiyang about music, a shadow fell over them. Minji looked up to see a Hross guard standing there. His name was Gavrok, and he was known for being cruel even by Hross standards. "What are you doing, human?" Gavrok demanded. His voice was harsh, full of contempt. Minji stood up quickly. "Nothing. I was just feeding the prisoner?" Gavrok stepped closer. He was twice Minji's height, covered in thick armor-like skin. "That's against regulations. The trophy is fed on a schedule, nothing more." "He was hungry," Minji said, trying to keep her voice steady. Gavrok laughed. "It doesn't matter if he's hungry. He's a defeated enemy, a thing, and you're wasting colony resources on it." He grabbed Minji's arm roughly. "I should report you to the administrators." Taiyang's chains rattled. "Let her go." Gavrok turned to look at the dragon. "Or what?" You'll breathe fire at me? Oh, wait, you can't. Those chains suppress all your powers. You're as helpless as this little human. The harassed guard squeezed Minji's arm harder, making her wince. Taiyang's eyes blazed brighter, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. The chains began to glow hotter, crackling with energy as they fought to contain him. I said, let her go, Taiyang repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. Gavrok stared at the dragon for a moment, then shoved Minji away. She stumbled but caught herself. Stay away from the prisoner, human, Gavrok said. Next time, I will report you, and humans can't afford to cause trouble here. He walked away, laughing with the other guards. Minji stood there, rubbing her arm where he had grabbed her. The announcement came on a gray morning, broadcast across every screen in the colony. Minji was in the maintenance bay when she heard it, and the wrench slipped from her hand, clattering on the metal floor. Administrator Ilvek, the Velkrin who ran Ashdara Prime, appeared on the screen. His face was pale and slug-like, his eyes cold. Citizens of the colony, he said in his flat voice. In 3 days, we will host a special event. The Dravik prisoner has been here for over 70 years. The Coalition Science Division has requested a live study. The creature will be vivisected for research and entertainment purposes. Minji felt like someone had poured ice water through her veins. Vivisected. That meant they would cut him open while he was still alive. They would study him while he died, slowly, in front of an audience. This will be broadcast across the sector, Ilvek continued. A reminder of the Coalition's strength and the fate of those who oppose order. All colonists are encouraged to attend. The screen went dark. Around Minji, the other workers started talking. Some seemed excited, others were indifferent. No one seemed bothered by what they had just heard. Minji grabbed her tools and ran out of the bay. She had to do something. She had to stop this. For the next 2 days, Minji tried everything. She sent messages to human representatives in the Coalition. They told her there was nothing they could do. Humanity had no real power in the government. They were barely tolerated members. She tried to contact Coalition officials directly. Her messages were ignored or deleted. She even tried to find journalists, activists, anyone who might care. No one did. A chained Dravik being killed was not news. It was entertainment. On the night before the execution, Minji sat in her room staring at her datapad. She had failed. She had tried every proper channel, every legal method, and none of it mattered. Tomorrow, Taiyang would die, and she would have to watch, unable to do anything. Then she stopped. She was thinking about this the wrong way. She could not fight the Coalition with laws or politics. She was just a maintenance worker. But she was also an engineer. Minji pulled up the schematics she had access to through her work. She searched through maintenance files, security protocols, technical documentation. She spent hours reading, her eyes burning with exhaustion. And then she found it. The quantum shackles that held Taiyang were powered by something called fear resonance technology. The chains read the prisoner's emotional state. When the prisoner felt fear, despair, or hopelessness, the chains grew stronger. It was a cruel system, designed to make escape impossible. The more you wanted to be free, the more afraid you became, the tighter your prison became. But there was a note in the technical file, buried deep in the documentation. A warning for the engineers who maintained the system. Chains may experience power fluctuations if prisoner experiences sustained positive emotional states. This is considered unlikely given standard imprisonment conditions. Minji read that line 5 times. Positive emotional states. Hope, joy, love. The chains had never been tested against those feelings because who would feel hope while being tortured and imprisoned? But Taiyang had felt hope. She had given him that. And now she had to give him enough hope to break 73 years of chains. Minji packed her toolkit. She added a small plasma cutter, the kind used for emergency repairs on ship hulls. It would not be enough to cut through the chains by itself, But if the chains weakened, if Tae-yang could feel enough hope to make them flicker, even for a moment. It was a desperate plan. It would probably fail. And even if it worked, it would definitely get her arrested, maybe killed. But doing nothing while Tae-yang died was not an option. That night, Minji went to the square one last time. The area was empty except for the guards. They had increased security, expecting crowds tomorrow. But tonight, they were bored, distracted. Minji walked straight to Tae-yang. He looked up as she approached, and she saw surprise in his orange eyes. "You should not be here," he said quietly. "Tomorrow is—" "I know what tomorrow is," Minji cut him off. She knelt down and opened her toolkit. "That's why I'm here. We're going to break you out." Tae-yang stared at her. "That's impossible. These chains have held me for over 70 years. I have tried everything. Fire, strength, dimensional shifting. Nothing works." "That's because you were using the wrong approach," Minji said. She pulled out her datapad and showed him the schematic. "These chains feed on fear and despair, but they weaken with hope. I've seen them flicker when you talk about your people, when you remember good things. We're going to use that." "Minji, this will get you killed," Tae-yang said, his voice urgent. "If you do this, the guards will—" "I know," Minji said. She looked up at him and her eyes were steady. "But I can't watch them kill you. I won't. You told me your people believed in balancing strength with wisdom. Well, humans believe in something too. We believe that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight is impossible." She activated her plasma cutter. "I'm going to cut through the secondary relay on the Shackles. But I need you to focus. Think about every good moment you've had, every memory that made you feel alive, every reason you have to want to be free. Can you do that?" Tae-yang looked at her, this small human girl who had shown him more kindness than anyone in 70 years, who was now risking everything for him. "Yes," he said, "I can do that." Minji began to work. The plasma cutter hummed as it bit into the metal housing around the chain's power relay. Sparks flew. Minji's hands were steady, guided by years of repair work. And Tae-yang did what she asked. He closed his eyes and thought about his home world before the war. He remembered flying through clouds of flame with his wings fully spread. He remembered his family, his friends, the taste of fresh food and the sound of Dravic music. He thought about Minji's visits. Every bowl of stew, every conversation, every moment she had treated him like a person instead of a monster. The chains began to flicker. A guard noticed. "Hey, what's going on over there?" More guards started running toward them. Gavrok was in the lead, his weapon drawn. "Stop! Stop now!" Minji kept cutting. The relay was almost through. "Keep thinking, Tae-yang. Remember what it felt like to be free." Tae-yang's eyes opened, blazing with orange fire. He thought about Minji's words. "You deserve better than this." He thought about hope, real hope, the kind he had not felt in decades. He thought about the future, about the possibility of flying again, of living again. The chains flickered harder. Cracks of light appeared in the glowing bands around his legs. Gavrok reached them. He pointed his plasma rifle at Minji. "Move away from the prisoner or I will shoot." "No," Minji said. She made the final cut. The relay sparked and died. And Tae-yang, filled with hope, filled with rage at 73 years of injustice, filled with the memory of freedom and the promise of tomorrow, roared. The sound shook the entire square. It was not just noise, it was power, raw and ancient, the voice of a species that had once commanded stars. And in that moment, with hope burning brighter than fear ever could, something inside Tae-yang ignited. Fire. Real fire, not the memory of it. Flames burst from his chest, from his throat, from deep within his core. The quantum shackles, designed to suppress all his power, tried to contain it, but they were flickering, weakened by hope, damaged by Minji's cut. They could not hold. The shackles did not just break, they melted. Superheated metal dripped like water, hissing as it hit the ground. The chains around his legs, his wings, his neck, all of them turned to liquid metal and fell away. For the first time in 73 years, Taeyang was free. He stood to his full height, and the square was suddenly too small. His wings unfurled, massive membranes that caught the light and seemed to glow with inner fire. His scales, no longer dulled by captivity, shone blue and crimson. He was magnificent. He was terrible. He was everything the Coalition had tried to destroy. Gavrok fired his weapon. The plasma bolt hit Taeyang's scales and bounced away harmlessly. Other guards opened fire. Their shots did nothing. Taeyang moved faster than something his size should be able to move. He positioned himself between Minji and the guards. His tail swept across the ground, knocking weapons from hands. His wing created a shield of scaled membrane. The colony descended into panic. Sirens wailed through the streets. Lights flashed red across every building. Colonists ran for shelter, expecting destruction. The guards retreated, calling for reinforcements. And in the center of the square, Taeyang stood with his wings spread wide, flames still flickering around his jaws. Minji stayed close to him, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She had done it. She had actually done it. But now what? Taeyang was free, but they were surrounded by an entire colony of hostile forces. Coalition warships would be here soon. This was not escape. This was just a different kind of trap. Administrator Ilvek's face appeared on every screen in the square. His pale skin looked even whiter than usual. Attention, all personnel. The Dravik prisoner has breached containment. This is a code black emergency. Military forces are inbound. All civilians must evacuate the central district immediately. Taeyang looked at the screens, then down at Minji. You should run, he said. Go to your people. Hide. I will draw their attention away from the human quarter. What? No. Minji stepped in front of him. We didn't do this so you could sacrifice yourself. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Taeyang said, but his voice was gentle. I am free now, thanks to you. I can die free. That is more than I hoped for. That's not good enough, Minji said stubbornly. Before Taeyang could respond, more guards appeared. These were not just colony security. These were coalition military, heavily armed and armored. They formed a perimeter around the square, weapons trained on the dragon. A voice boomed from a speaker. Dravik, you are surrounded. Surrender or be destroyed. Taeyang laughed, a sound like rocks tumbling down a mountain. I have been destroyed for 73 years. I have been caged, starved, tortured, forgotten. If you want to kill me now, try. But know this, I will take many of you with me. His chest began to glow again. The soldiers shifted nervously. They all knew the stories. A single Dravik warrior could destroy a warship. A Dravik filled with rage could level a city. And this one had 73 years of rage stored inside him. But before anyone could fire, Taeyang did something unexpected. He accessed the colony's communication system. His voice thundered from every speaker in Ashdara Prime. Hear me. Coalition! Taeyang's words echoed across the entire settlement. I am Taeyang, last flame of the Dravik sovereignty. For 73 years you imprisoned me. You forgot I was a person. You forgot I had a name. But one human remembered. One human showed me kindness when everyone else showed cruelty. And for that, I offer the Coalition a choice. Minji looked up at him, surprised. What was he doing? I could destroy this colony, Taeyang continued. You all know I could. I can feel my power returning, stronger than before. I could turn this place to ash. But I will not, because that human taught me something important. She taught me that mercy is not weakness, that kindness matters, that even the smallest act of compassion can change the world. He paused, letting his words sink in. In the human quarter of the colony, families huddled around their screens, listening. Other humans had gathered in the streets, confused, frightened, wondering what was happening. "Here is my offer," Taeyang said. "I will leave this colony peacefully. I will go beyond your borders and never return. But in exchange, you will grant safe passage to all humans on Ashadara Prime. You will give them transport to a new world of their choosing, with resources to build a proper settlement. You will treat them with the dignity they deserve. If you refuse, I will show you why my people were once feared across the galaxy." Silence fell across the colony. In the command center, Administrator Ilvek stared at the screen in horror. Around the square, soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. No one had expected this. They had expected rage. They had expected destruction. Not negotiation. And certainly not negotiation for the sake of humans, the weakest species in the coalition. In the human quarter, an older man named Hajun pushed through the crowd. He had been a maintenance supervisor for 30 years, had always told people to keep their heads down, to avoid trouble. Now he looked at the screen showing Taeyang standing protectively over Minji, and his eyes were wet. "She did this," Hajun whispered. "That girl who kept visiting him, she did this for us." The humans began to talk among themselves. They were scared, yes, but they were also amazed. One of their own had befriended a monster, and now that monster was fighting for them. Back in the square, Minji stepped forward. "Taeyang, you don't have to do this. You should save yourself." Taeyang looked down at her, and his orange eyes were warm. "You saved me first. You showed me that there is still good in this galaxy. Let me repay that debt. Let me give your people what mine lost, a chance at a real home." The communication system crackled. A new voice came through, cold and commanding. It was a coalition admiral, speaking from a warship in orbit. "This is Admiral Corvin. Dravik, your offer is rejected. You are a war criminal. You will be destroyed, and the humans will face consequences for your escape." Taeyang's eyes blazed brighter. His wings spread wider. "Then you have chosen destruction." "Wait!" Another voice cut through. It was older, tired. "This is Counselor Vren of the Thal Assembly. Admiral, stand down." "Counselor, this creature is dangerous. I was alive during the Dravik Wars," Vren interrupted. "I saw what a single Dravik warrior could do when cornered. I saw one of them destroy 3 capital ships before we brought him down. This Taeyang has been imprisoned for 70 years. He is filled with rage and power. If we attack him now over a colony full of civilians, thousands will die before we stop him. Maybe tens of thousands." There was a pause. Minji could hear the Admiral breathing heavily through the comm. "And there is another consideration," Vren continued. "If we refuse this offer and attack, we show the entire galaxy that the Coalition values pride over practical mercy. We show that we would rather sacrifice lives than make a simple concession. Is that the message we want to send?" "The humans helped him escape," Admiral Corvin argued. "They must be punished." "One human helped him," Vren corrected. "One girl who showed kindness to a suffering creature. Is that a crime worthy of punishing an entire species? And if we do punish them, what does that say about us?" The silence stretched. Minji stood next to Taeyang, hardly daring to breathe. Around the square, soldiers kept their weapons trained on the dragon, but none of them fired. Finally, Counselor Vren spoke again. "I vote to accept the Dravik's terms. We grant the humans safe passage and resources for a new settlement. In exchange, the Dravik leaves peacefully. Who agrees?" One by one, voices came through the communication system. Coalition counselors debating the choice. Some voted to attack. Others voted to accept. The discussion went on for 20 minutes, while Taeyang stood like a statue and Minji's legs began to shake from exhaustion and fear. Then the final vote came. "The decision is made," Vren announced. By a vote of 7-4, we accept. The humans will be given safe passage. The Dravik will leave without retaliation. Both parties will honor this agreement." Admiral Corvin's voice was tight with anger. "This is a mistake." "Perhaps," Vren said. "But it is a mistake that saves lives. Make the arrangements." Taeyang slowly lowered his wings. The glow in his chest dimmed. Around the square, soldiers relaxed slightly, though they kept their weapons ready. Minji felt her knees give out. She sat down hard on the ground, shaking. They had done it. Somehow, impossibly, they had done it. Over the next week, the coalition kept its word. Transport ships arrived at Ashidara Prime. The humans were loaded aboard with their belongings, given supplies and equipment, told they could choose any unclaimed world on the frontier for settlement. The other colonists watched them go with mixed feelings. Some were glad to see them leave. Others were confused. A few seemed almost envious. The weak humans had somehow gained something most species never got: true freedom to choose their own path. Hajun found Minji on the day before departure. She was standing near the landing pad, watching the ships being loaded. "You were brave," Hajun said quietly. "Stupid, maybe, but brave." 6 months passed like water flowing over stone. The humans named their new world Sebyok, which meant dawn in Old Korean. It was a beautiful name for a fresh start. The planet was not easy. The soil needed work. The weather was unpredictable. There were no cities, no infrastructure, nothing but raw land and possibility. But it was theirs, completely theirs. No other species telling them what to do. No administrators looking down on them. No guards treating them like they did not matter. Minji threw herself into the work. She helped design water systems, power generators, housing complexes. Her engineering skills were needed everywhere. She worked 12-hour days, sometimes 14. It was exhausting, but it felt good. She was building something real. But late at night, when the work was done, Minji would look up at the stars and think about orange eyes and a voice like thunder. She wondered where Taeyang had gone, if he was safe, if he had found other survivors of his kind, if he remembered her at all. The settlement grew quickly. Within months, they had a working colony. Small, rough around the edges, but functional. The humans of Sebyok were proud of what they had built. They held meetings, made decisions together, created their own rules. For the first time in decades, humanity was truly free. Hajun became one of the settlement's leaders. He often spoke about how they got here, about the girl who showed kindness to a chained dragon. Minji became something of a legend, though she hated the attention. She was just a maintenance worker who had done what felt right. One evening, Minji was inspecting a new water purification system on the edge of the settlement. It was sunset, and the sky was painted orange and purple. She was checking pressure readings when Hajun's voice crackled over her communicator. "Minji, you need to come to the landing pad now." Something in his tone made her stop. "What's wrong? Is it an attack?" "No, not an attack. Just come see. You're not going to believe this." Minji grabbed her tools and ran. When she reached the landing pad, she found half the settlement gathered there, all looking up at the sky. The sun was setting, but the sky was growing darker in one spot. Not with night, but with shadow. Something huge was descending. Minji's breath caught. She knew that shape, those wings, that size. But it could not be. Taeyang landed in the clearing beyond the settlement, his claws touching the ground with surprising gentleness for something so large. His scales gleamed in the fading light, fully restored to their magnificent blue and crimson. He looked exactly as he must have looked before his captivity. Proud, strong, free. But he was not alone. 3 more Dravik descended from the sky. They were smaller than Taeyang, but still massive. One was dark green with silver edges to her scales. Another was bronze with black wing membranes. The third was pale blue, almost white, with eyes like ice. The humans stared in shock. No one moved. No one spoke. They had all heard stories about the Dravik, about how dangerous they were, how the Coalition had destroyed them for being too powerful, and now 4 of them had just landed on their world. Tai Yang folded his wings and walked forward slowly. The humans scattered, making a path. He was looking for someone specific. When his eyes found Minji, standing frozen near the water station, he stopped. "Hello, Minji," Taeyang said. His voice was the same rumble she remembered, but stronger now, not weakened by chains and starvation. "Taeyang," Minji managed to say. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You came back." "I promised I would remember you," Taeyang said. "How could I forget the one who saved me?" He gestured with his massive head toward the other Dravik. "After I left the colony, I searched the outer sectors. I found others. We are the last of our kind, only 4 survivors in the entire galaxy." The green Dravik stepped forward. Her voice was softer than Taeyang's, like wind through leaves. "My name is Nari. I was hiding in the asteroid fields of the Kellen system." The bronze one spoke next, his voice deep and slow. "I am Deho. I survived in the volcanic regions of Pireth." The pale blue Dravik, a female with scars across her snout, said, "I am Yunji. I hid among the ice moons of Sector 7. Taeyang looked back at Minji. "We have no home. Our worlds are dust. Our cities are ruins. We are the last of a species that once commanded star systems. We have power, knowledge, and technology that most of the galaxy has forgotten. But we have nowhere to belong." He lowered his massive head until he was nearly at eye level with Minji. "You taught me that kindness matters, that mercy is strength, that even the smallest gesture can change everything. So I have come to ask you something, Minji. I have come to ask humanity something." Hajun stepped forward, standing beside Minji. Other humans gathered closer, including the settlement's council members. "What do you want to ask?" Hajun said carefully. "An alliance," Taeyang said. "Not as masters and servants, not as conquerors and conquered, as equals. We offer you everything we have, our knowledge, our strength, our technology. We can teach you dimensional engineering. We can share our understanding of elemental forces. We can help you build a civilization that rivals anything in the Coalition." "And in exchange?" Minji asked. Taeyang's orange eyes were steady. "A place to belong. Permission to live here, on Sebyok, alongside humanity, a chance to rebuild our culture, to teach our history to your children and learn yours in return. We do not want to conquer. We do not want to rule. We just want what you wanted. A home." The humans looked at each other. Some faces showed fear. Others showed suspicion. The Dravik were powerful, dangerous. What if this was a trap? What if they turned on humanity once they were established? But Hajun looked at Minji. "What do you think?" Minji stared up at Taeyang. She remembered a rainy night, a chained dragon, and a simple bowl of stew. She remembered conversations in the dark. She remembered orange eyes filled with hope when the shackles melted. "I think," Minji said slowly, "that we were saved because Taeyang remembered kindness. And if we turn away others in need now, what does that make us? We would be just like the Coalition, strong but cruel, powerful but heartless." She turned to face the assembled humans. "Taeyang could have escaped alone. He could have just left us on that colony. But he didn't. He risked everything to save us. He gave us this world, this freedom. And now he's asking us to return that kindness. How can we say no?" There was silence. Then Hajun nodded. "We should vote on it. This is too big a decision for one person." The settlement council gathered. They debated for hours while the Dravik waited patiently outside. Some argued it was too dangerous. Others said it was humanity's chance to make a real ally, a powerful one. Still others pointed out that the Dravik knowledge could advance human civilization by centuries. Finally, as the moons rose over Sci-Fi, the vote was called. 7 voted yes, 3 voted no. Hajun walked out to where Taeyang waited. "The decision is made," he said. "We accept your offer. Welcome to Sci-Fi. Welcome home." Taeyang's eyes blazed bright with emotion. "Thank you. You will not regret this. I swear it on the memory of my people." That night, they held a celebration. Humans and Dravik together, awkward at first, unsure how to interact. But slowly, carefully, they began to talk, to share stories, to learn about each other. Nari, the green Dravik, was fascinated by human music. She listened to songs for hours, her eyes closed, her tail swaying slightly. Daiho, the bronze Dravik, talked with the settlement's engineers about geothermal energy. Yunji, scarred and quiet, sat with the children who were brave enough to approach her, telling them stories about the ice moons. And Taeyang sat with Minji on a hill overlooking the settlement. "You know," Minji said, "when I brought you that stew, I never imagined this." Taeyang made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Neither did I. I thought I would die in those chains. I thought my entire species would be forgotten, remembered only as monsters." "You're not monsters," Minji said. "We were warriors," Taeyang said. "We did terrible things during the wars. The coalition was not wrong about everything. We were dangerous, proud, sometimes cruel in our own way." "But you're also more than that," Minji said. "You're artists, philosophers, builders. You're people." Taeyang looked at her. "That is what you saw, when everyone else saw only a monster. That is what changed everything." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the settlement below. Humans and Dravik, working together, learning from each other, building something new. 10 years passed. The settlement of Sci-Fi grew into a thriving city. Human engineers worked with Dravik artisans to create buildings that were both functional and beautiful. Dravik scholars taught humans about dimensional physics. Human teachers helped young Dravik learn about galactic history and modern culture. The coalition watched nervously. The weak humans had allied with the feared Dravik. Together, they were creating something the galaxy had never seen before. A true partnership between species, based on mutual respect rather than power. Other species began to take notice. Some sent ambassadors, curious about this unusual alliance. Others sent spies. A few sent trade offers. The coalition could no longer dismiss humanity as weak and irrelevant, not when they had Dravik allies, not when their technology was advancing so rapidly. Minji became the chief engineer of Sci-Fi. She led teams that built impossible things, bridges that floated on magnetic fields, power systems that drew energy from dimensional rifts, ships that could travel faster than any coalition vessel. Taeyang served as an ambassador and teacher. He helped negotiate treaties, taught philosophy and history, and often spoke about the importance of mercy and kindness in a galaxy that valued only strength. On the 10th anniversary of the Alliance, they held a ceremony. Humans and Dravik gathered in the central plaza. Children of both species played together, used to each other now. Young humans learned to speak the Dravik language. Young Dravik learned human customs. Hajun, now old and gray, gave a speech. 10 years ago, a girl showed kindness to a chained dragon. That simple act changed the fate of 2 species. It taught us that strength is not just about power. It is about compassion, about seeing others as worthy of dignity, about refusing to look away from suffering. He gestured to where Minji and Taeyang stood side by side. These 2 taught us what it means to be truly strong, not through conquest, not through weapons, but through the courage to care, even when the galaxy says you should not. The crowd cheered. Human voices and Dravik roars mixed together in a sound of unity. That night, Minji stood on the same hill where she had sat with Taeyang 10 years before. The settlement had grown into a true city now, lights spreading across the valley below. Tai Yang joined her, his massive form settling onto the grass with practiced care. "Do you ever regret it?" Tai Yang asked. "That night you brought me stew? Your life would have been simpler if you had just walked past." Minji smiled. "Simpler, maybe, but not better." She looked up at him. "You gave me shelter in the storm. I gave you shelter from captivity. We saved each other." "And changed the galaxy in the process," Tai Yang added. Below them, in the city of Sabiak, humans and Dravik lived and worked together. They were building a future that neither species could have built alone. They were proving that the weak could be strong through kindness, that the powerful could be wise through mercy, that the galaxy could be better than cruel. And it all started with a girl, a dragon, and a bowl of stew shared in the rain. Minji shook her head. "I was just trying to do the right thing." "You did more than that," Hajun said. "You showed an entire colony what kindness looks like, and you got us all a second chance." He paused. "Thank you." Minji nodded, not trusting herself to speak. That night, the humans boarded the transport ships. As they lifted off, breaking through the atmosphere into space, Minji looked out the viewport. In the distance, she saw a shape flying alongside them. Large, blue, and crimson, with wings that caught the starlight. Tai Yang was keeping his promise. He was leaving, just as he had said. But he was making sure they got away safely first. Minji pressed her hand against the viewport, and far across the vacuum of space, she saw the dragon's orange eyes turn toward her ship. Then he turned away, wings beating steadily, and flew toward the outer edge of the system, toward freedom, toward whatever lay beyond the coalition's borders. The transport ships jumped to faster than light, carrying their human cargo toward a new home. And somewhere in the void, a dragon remembered the girl who had brought him stew in the rain. "You will not touch her," Tai Yang said, and his voice was not the tired rumble it had been. It was thunder. It was the voice of a species that had once made the galaxy tremble. He drew in breath, and Minji saw his chest glow from within, like looking into a furnace. Then Tai Yang breathed fire. A torrent of plasma erupted from his mouth, turning night into day. He aimed it above the guards' heads, a warning shot that set the sky ablaze. The guards scattered, screaming. Alarms began to sound across the colony. Tai Yang looked down at Minji, who stood behind him, small and unharmed. "You did it," he said, wonder in his voice. "After 73 years, you freed me." "We freed you," Minji corrected, her voice shaking. "We did it together." Around them, chaos erupted. And somewhere, deep in the colony's communication center, emergency signals were being sent to every coalition warship in the sector. The dragon was free. "You should stop coming," Tai Yang said quietly. "He's right. It's dangerous for you, for your people." Minji looked at him, at his scarred scales, his glowing chains, his eyes that held both fire and sadness. She thought about 73 years of captivity. She thought about kindness in a cruel galaxy. "No," she said. "I'll be more careful. But I'm not going to stop." "Why?" Tai Yang asked, and this time the question was different. It was not disbelief. It was wonder. "Because you deserve better than this," Minji said simply. "Because in a galaxy full of strong creatures who don't care, someone should." That night, when Minji left, Tai Yang watched her go with something he had not felt in decades. Not just hope now, but something deeper. Gratitude, connection, the beginning of something that would change everything. Eek. He opened it. Steam rose from the stew inside. Minji could see his nostrils flare, catching the scent. "Go," he said quietly, "before the guards notice." Minji nodded. She turned and walked away, her heart pounding. She did not look back. She crossed the square, went back to her room, and closed the door behind her. That night she lay in bed thinking about orange eyes and a voice like thunder. She thought about chains that had held for 70 years. She thought about what it meant to be kind in a galaxy that valued strength above all else. In the central square, alone in the rain, Taeyang lifted the container to his mouth and drank the stew. It was simple food, almost tasteless by the standards of what he had once known. But it was warm. It was given freely. It was the first kindness he had known in 70 years. Something in his chest, something that had been frozen for decades, began to crack. He looked up at the dark sky, rain washing over his scarred scales, and for the first time in a very long time, Taeyang felt something other than rage and despair. He felt hope.